majority of the toys and gifts too at Christmas. And so they wanted to thank us. In fact, Kathy was asking Bella, who's a little girl, said, do you want Mr. Randy to say that? She said, no, we need to say thank you. So we are glad that they are here with us and glad that we could help them in that way and just give to them. And thank y'all for letting us give to you back during Christmas. We appreciate it. You know you're getting old when the following happens. You and your teeth don't sleep together. You try to straighten out the wrinkles in your socks and discover you aren't wearing socks. At the breakfast table, you hear snap, crackle, pop, and you're not eating any cereal. Your back goes out, but you stay home. Your idea of a night out is sitting on the patio. I'm kind of like that one. You're on vacation and your energy runs out before your money does. You step off a curb and look down one more time to make sure the street is still there. It takes longer to rest than it did to get tired. I'm starting to understand that one myself. The pharmacist has become your new best friend. It takes twice as long to look half as good. Everything hurts, and what doesn't hurt doesn't work. You sink your teeth into a steak, and they stay there. And then finally, you wonder how you can be over the hill when you don't even remember being on top of it. Now, those are humorous, but I want to talk to everyone this morning, but I especially want to address our older members. And I mean no disrespect by that whatsoever. I think y'all know me well enough to know that. Research has shown that as the average lifespan continues to increase, as baby boomers especially are hitting retirement age, we're seeing more and more senior adults. And by the year 2025, it is estimated that people over the age of 65 will outnumber teenagers by 2 to 1. That's a lot. But that tells me that we have a lot of seniors, and obviously we have a lot here today in our congregation. And it tells me that maybe we need to address some things that seniors face. Because let's face it, we all face temptation. We all have things that we deal with in our life. But this morning I want to specifically address some things that our older people tend to face as they get older. Now again, I want to say that I'm doing this with the utmost respect. Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 32 says, "You shall stand up before the gray head and honor the face of an old man." I want you to know that I respect you and I appreciate you. And I don't want this to come across as critical or judgmental, but I do want to share what God's Word has to say about the model and behavior that older Christians need to exhibit. Now, for those of you who are not senior adults, please don't tune me out, because guess what? Lord willing, one day you'll be one. Okay? I'm getting there quickly myself. So we all need to pay attention to what God's Word has to say. Because even though you may have been a Christian for many, many years, a very faithful Christian, Satan still wants to try to attack you. He still wants to try to make you stumble, to entice you to sin, to embarrass you, and more importantly, to negate your influence on others around you. Someone once said the temptation in the older years are not usually gross sins of the flesh, but more subtle sins of the Spirit. And so what we're going to look at this morning really has been developed over the last few years by a poll of several hundred Christian seniors that was taken a few years ago. And in this study, we want to focus on one particular Bible character who was a senior adult when we learn a lot about him, who exemplified faith, confidence, willpower, and tenacity and courage. I'm talking about the character of Caleb. We mentioned him very briefly in our Bible study this morning. Let me give you just a little bit of background. You recall that when Moses led the children of Israel out of Egypt into the Promised Land, that before they went to the Promised Land, God said to send 12 spies to spy out the land, one from each tribe. Caleb and Joshua were 2 among those 12, so they went to spy out the land. And as we mentioned in the Bible class this morning, the 12 came back and they gave a report for what they had seen. They said the land is good, it's fruitful, there's just all kinds of stuff there, but the people there are really big and powerful. We're like insects in their eyes, and we can't go in and take it. Now that was a report of 10 of the spies. 2 of those spies, Joshua and Caleb, that's the reason we remember their names, said, yes, we can. We can take the land because God will be with us. Caleb was proving himself that he trusted God and that he was a man of faith and action. And 45 years later, again, because God said, because the children of Israel listened to those 10 and would not trust in him that he could let them take the land, he cursed them to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. So after that wandering is done, and Joshua and Caleb were specifically spared by God and said they would be allowed to go in because they trusted in him. So at the end of that 40 years, they're coming back and they're ready to enter the promised land again. And Caleb still has that faith in God. We'll see that he proved himself still a man of faith and action. If you want to turn in your Bibles to Joshua chapter 14, that's the passage we'll be looking at. I have it on the screen here, maybe a little small. Joshua chapter 14, verses 6 through 14. This is after the wandering in the wilderness, and the children of Israel are ready to go into the promised land. Start reading in verse 16. Then the people of Judah came to Joshua at Gilgal, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, said to him, "You know what the Lord said to Moses, the man of God, in Kadesh Barnea, concerning you and me. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land, and I brought him word again as it was in my heart. But my brothers who went up with me made the heart of the people melt. Yet I wholly followed the Lord my God. And Moses swore on that day, saying, Surely the land on which your foot is trodden shall be an inheritance for you and your children forever, because you have wholly followed the Lord my God. And now behold, the Lord has kept me alive, just as he said, these 45 years since the time that the Lord spoke this word to Moses, while Israel walked in the wilderness. And now behold, I am this day 85 years old. I am still as strong today as I was in the day that Moses sent me. My strength now is as my strength was then, for war and for going and coming. So now give me this hill country of which the Lord spoke on that day. For you heard on that day how the Anakim were there, with great fortified cities. It may be that the Lord will be with me, and I shall drive them out just as the Lord said. And Joshua blessed him, and he gave Hebron to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, for an inheritance. Therefore Hebron became the inheritance of Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, to this day, because he wholly followed the Lord, the God of Israel. Again, we see here Caleb exhibiting that faith that God wanted all of his people to exhibit. And there's 5 things that I want to look at, 5 brief points that we can learn about temptations that our older people tend to face and how we can learn from Caleb to overcome those temptations. The first thing that I think that is a temptation for our older people is to have a critical spirit. And I think this temptation really has more to do with someone's personality than with their age. And what I mean by that is, if you're an optimistic, even-tempered person in your 40s, you're probably going to be an optimistic, even-tempered, and pleasant at 70 or 80. But if you're pessimistic, critical, and negative at 40, it's likely that not much is going to change in your older years unless God really gets a hold of your heart. It's also true that difficult circumstances, the normal aches and pains of aging, and the tragedies of life leave many senior adults battling the tendency toward negativism. And it seems to intensify as we get older. Y'all remember these guys from the Muppet Show, right? Statler and Waldorf. They never had anything positive to say, did they? They were always complaining about everything. And obviously they're supposed to be a caricature of the traditional, grumpy old man or grumpy old men. But you know what? There's a lot of truth in that. Our patience gets thinner. We gripe about unpleasant circumstances. We often feel a loss of influence and criticize people who are now in charge. Someone once said, criticism is sometimes a way of getting attention and reminding people that once we were important. A critical spirit seems to just become second nature as people get older. And the only way to combat that is to just refuse to become a grumpy old man or a whiny old woman. Some of you may remember former UCLA and Hall of Fame basketball coach John Wooden. He was a master of having a positive attitude, even up until his older years. He was in Indianapolis several years ago for a basketball game between Duke and his former team, UCLA. This was after he had retired. UCLA got stomped and just played horribly. And after the game, a reporter came and asked Coach Wooden what he thought of his former team's performance. Coach Wooden smiled, a gentlemanly smile, and said something like, well, anything I would say would probably be construed as criticism. Therefore, I think it would be wiser for me not to comment on the loss. I'm sure the coach is going to make adjustments as the season goes on. No wonder he was so respected and loved, even up until his 90s. But what about you? Do you find yourself grateful for neighbors who stop by, for friends who call once in a while, for children who stay in touch, or does it frustrate you that your kids aren't as attentive as you think they should be, and you feel neglected? Do you get upset because the preacher is too busy and doesn't stop by as often as you think I should? Do you look for the positive traits in today's younger generation, or are you constantly criticizing them? Are you thankful for the help that you do have? Or are you continually complaining about what's not working? You see, the choice is up to us. The cure for a critical spirit is to develop a positive attitude. If you go back to what we read there about Caleb, 45 years before going into the Promised Land, when Moses had sent the spies, the report was, we can't go in, we can't do it. But Caleb said we can. In fact, in the book of Numbers, chapter 13 and verse 30, we're told there, Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it. You see, even at age 40, Caleb saw everything that was positive about God's plan. And then when he was 85 years old, some 45 years later, after that wandering in the wilderness, that optimism had not diminished. He maintained a positive outlook as to what God could do for them. He avoided a negative attitude. We need to try to do the same. A second struggle that I think older people tend to face is spiritual retirement. Now, by spiritual retirement, I mean the temptation to back off from church involvement and spiritual responsibilities when they hit retirement age. Now, most career people at some point in their lives will retire. But folks, we should never retire from our spiritual duties and service in the kingdom. Some senior adults tend to step away from their service in God's church. In midlife, we oftentimes experience an overload of activity. We look forward to retirement so we can slow down and so we can relax. And there's nothing wrong with that. But some Christians tend to think, I'm just going to back off from everything. I'll back off my weekly responsibilities at church. I'll back off in what I've been doing in God's kingdom so that I can just kind of rest and relax and travel and have a good time. And again, there's nothing wrong with traveling. Nothing wrong with doing that in your retirement years. But you know what? We don't need to retire from service to God. We have a couple of couples here with us this morning who are members of the organization known as Sojourners. And they are mostly retired people who have not backed off from their service to God. In fact, they are probably more active now than they were years before. And they travel around to different places, doing things in different congregations and helping people who are in need. That's the kind of attitude that we all need to have, but especially as we become older. You see, the cure for spiritual retirement is continual service regardless of our age. We don't quit God just because we get older. Revelation 2:10 does not say, be faithful unto retirement, and I will give you the crown of life. It says, be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. Caleb was a man who remained eager to fulfill God's mission even when he was 85 years old. What we just read in chapter 14 there, Joshua told us that Caleb followed the Lord wholeheartedly. And he says even at the age of 85 that he couldn't wait to go fight the Lord's battles. What an awesome attitude. He was eagerly setting out to do the Lord's work. I read about a man named Sam. He just turned 90 years old and he plays the trombone daily. And he recently said, I must be a crazy old man. I'm 90 years old and I just bought a brand new trombone. But you know what? His doctor says he's healthy as a horse, and it may be due in part to the fact that he's played that trombone all his life and continues to exercise his lungs. You see, even at the age of 90, he wasn't going to let age stop him from doing what he liked and wanted to do. Paul writes to Titus in Titus chapter 2, verses 2 through 5. He says, older men are to be sober-minded, dignified, self-controlled, sound in faith, in love and in steadfastness. Older women likewise are to be reverent in behavior, not slanderers or slaves to much wine. They are to teach what is good, and so train the young women to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled, pure, working at home, kind, and submissive to their own husbands, that the word of God may not be reviled. In the book of Job, chapter 12 and verse 12, Job says, wisdom is with the aged, and understanding in length of days. These two passages here and others basically say what I want you to get this morning. If you don't get anything else that I say this morning, please understand this. Seniors, older people, you are important. And we who are younger need you. We need your wisdom. We need your guidance. We need your voice of experience, the warmth of your love, the force of your example, and the strength of your work ethic. So please don't back off from setting that example for us. Don't retire from God's work. A third temptation, though, that I think you face is an inclination toward inflexibility. No generation has experienced as many dramatic changes as your generation has. Think about all the technological changes that have come about in your lifetime. We have the invention of television, the computer, smartphones, robots, space travel, going to the moon, sending probes to other planets, and things continue to happen. You've heard about the winds of change. Y'all haven't experienced winds of change. You've experienced a hurricane of change. And sometimes that change can be a little intimidating. Sometimes it can feel like it's leaving you behind. We have to accept that change is a regular part of life. And understand that nothing really stays the same, does it? And we need to recognize that the good old days probably weren't as good as you remember. Ecclesiastes 7 and verse 10 says, say not, why were the former days better than these? For it is not from wisdom that you ask this. Again, as I'm getting older, I'm approaching 50, I'm finding myself thinking this. Man, things were just so much better years ago, but they really weren't. Change is part of life, and we need to learn to accept that. And so the cure for inflexibility is an attitude that says not to live in the past, but rather let's move forward. Again, you look at Caleb. Look at the example he gives. He was 85 years old when he looked ahead to the promised land, longing to claim a new territory, eager to climb the next hill, conquer the next obstacle, seize the day. Again, verse 12, he says, now give me this hill country so that the Lord promised to me that day. We're going to have to embrace changes as we get older because status quo leads to stagnation, stagnation leads to decay, and decay leads to death. There are plenty, if you think about it, plenty of senior adults in Scripture who did things well into their older years. Abraham was 75 when God called him, and he was 100 when he finally received the son of promise. His wife Sarah was 90. Moses was 80 when he began to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt. He did that for another 40 years. Daniel was probably around 80 years old when he was thrown into the lion's den. We tend to picture Daniel as a young man when that happened. He was older, much older when that happened. The Apostle John was probably around 90 when he wrote the book of Revelation. There are more examples we could share, but you see my point, don't you? Just because you're older doesn't mean that there's not things that you can do. And so we need to learn to accept change and accept what God places before us. Number 4, a temptation that older people tend to succumb to is feelings of regret. Especially when it comes to maybe how they've raised their family or how they lived their life in their earlier years. People tend to look back over their lives and say, I wish I had done things differently. After his sin with Bathsheba, David lamented, my sin is always before me, Psalm 51 and verse 3. He remembered. He wasn't ever going to forget what he did, and I'm sure he experienced some regret. Joseph's 10 older brothers who had sold him into slavery regretted it. And even after their father died, they pleaded with him again, Joseph, to forgive them. This was years after they'd already come into Egypt, and Joseph had already forgiven them. They experienced that regret and begged him not to hold it against them. You see, regret causes people to wallow in self-pity, to feel unworthy, and really to miss the joy of forgiveness. They fail to appreciate today because of the mistakes of yesterday. And I think it's human nature for good people to remember a lot of their glaring mistakes. I know that I think back in my own life a lot of times to things that I've done that are wrong, things that I wish I had done differently, things that I regret doing. There are some Hall of Fame athletes who were asked to list their 3 most memorable moments in sports, and almost all of them included 1 or 2 instances of failure. They struck out in the ninth when the bases were loaded. They missed a free throw that could have won the game or something like that. Sometimes the best Christian people remember their failures. They made a commitment to obedience and excellence, but staggered and stumbled along the way. Well, the cure for regret is simply to totally accept the incredible forgiveness of God. Isaiah chapter 1 verse 18 says, "Come now, let us reason together, says the Lord. Though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be white as snow. Though they are red like crimson, they shall become like wool." There's no sin that you've committed, there's no mistake that you've made that God cannot forgive and forget. Again, some of the people God used in the most significant ways made huge mistakes in their lives. Abraham lied multiple times about who his wife really was. Moses committed murder. David committed adultery. Peter denied that he even knew Jesus. Paul persecuted Christians to their deaths. And yet each one of these people God used in the furtherance of his plan. So don't allow regret of your past to hold you back. Christ's death on the cross forgives you if you put your trust in Him. His blood can make the foulest sinner clean. And then fifthly and finally, older people have a tendency to worry. And I'll admit, there are plenty of things to worry about in your older years. Your health, your children, your grandchildren, your future. Will you be able to take care of yourself? Will you have to move into a nursing home? Will your spouse die and leave you all alone? Some of you have experienced that in here. And different senior adults deal with worry in different ways. Some hoard money out of fear of needing long-term care. Some turn to alcohol or medication, looking for peace in a liquor bottle or a pill bottle. But really the cure for excessive worry is simply trusting in God. Lost my place here, y'all. Sorry. Trusting in God who's faithful in all things. Jesus said that worrying can't do anything about the things that we worry about. It can't add a single hour to our life. It can't add a single inch to our stature. It won't change the outcome of anything that tomorrow holds. Some of you may have bowled before, and you may have watched people who bowl. Have you ever noticed, and even professional bowlers do this sometimes, but amateur especially, they let that ball go as it's rolling down the alley, they're doing like this, and move over and talking to the ball. Does that do any good? Not a bit. It's wasted energy, because once that ball is released, it's on its own. And all the wiggling and all the talking and all the hand waving is not going to change where that ball is going to go. Worrying is the same way. It doesn't change anything. It just wastes emotional energy and really demonstrates a lack of faith in God. Again, going back to the example of Caleb. Caleb trusted God to see him through. Caleb knew when he was 40 years old and when he gave the good report and when he was 85 years old that God was in control and that victory was in his hands. And concerning that battle to reclaim his portion of the promised land, in verse 12, he said, "You yourself heard then that the Amalekites were there and their cities were large and fortified, but the Lord helping me, I will drive them out just as he said." You know what the opposite of worry is? It's trust. It's maintaining confidence that God is in control and that with His help, we can get through any problem and overcome any obstacle. I like this phrase right here. Someone said, "Courage is fear that has said its prayers."